Hello, this is Tom and Chris, we're those film guys, and today we're going to be doing a review of Sinister, starring Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, so we'll break it down. Without spoilers first, what did you think, Tom?
You know, this is a trope, and I'll get more into this, but horror films have now become just a cliche of themselves. Sinister wasn't very scary, wasn't very memorable, boring, dull, nothing much happens, and it's utter rubbish. Awful from beginning to end. I found one scene in it mildly creepy, and that was it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Everything in this film you've seen before. There is nothing original in this film. And I've heard lots of reviews out there about that they praise the disturbing imagery, and really, not all that much. I mean, it's not particularly memorable. I will never see this film again, and there's nothing that's had a lasting impact on me.
I'm sending my ticket stub to that writer.
Yep.
Whoever wrote this, I'm sending. I've got my ticket stub here with me, and I'm sending that straight back and demanding my £6.50, which is what I paid for a ticket to this garbage. Like, honest, this is something about. This isn't just Sinister's a bad film, but this isn't really what I'm mainly going to be talking about, because it's bad.
Very bad.
It's very bad. It's terrible. Not very good. But the thing is, it's just horror films now. Modern horrors are just rely too heavily on the jump scares, and jump scares aren't scary. They aren't effective unless you have some form of atmosphere there which is paid off with a scare, and this just has no atmosphere at all. The music sounds like it's something Trent Reznor would flush away down the toilet. It's not very memorable, and it's absolutely horrid, beginning to end.
Yeah, for a film that was praised for its disturbing imagery, I was expecting a lot more atmosphere from this film, and it started off that way, I guess, for the first part of the first act, but then after that it just resorts to typical cliche horror films of recent years. And this is one. I'm not a huge horror fan. I haven't seen all that many, but this is one reason I refuse to go and see basically any horror film that's come out in the last 5 years, maybe 10 years. They're all so similar, and there is nothing original or creative about them. And if there is, it just resorts to typical stereotyped jump scares. And as you said, if there is no build up to them, they just get annoying.
You come out of this and think, what was the point of me sitting there for a good 2 hours watching this? Nothing actually happens.
No.
Nothing. They go to a creepy house, he finds a box of home videos, he watches them, and then just
bad stuff happens.
It's not stuff that's any good. It's not stuff that. It's stuff you think, well, what was the point of that? And it's the same thing for the ending, which I won't spoil at all. But that's just as bad. As it makes you wonder, why the hell did I ever watch that film in the beginning? And this isn't a spoiler, but the opening, you see a family hanged. That is literally the opening of the film. Was that a found footage thing? And it's just it raises more questions than it answers, in terms of how these things actually happened, and stuff like that. And it's just awful, and it's a testament to how bad horror has become.
Yeah.
Recently, Ethan Hawke's wasted, and he doesn't do much. He is quite funny when he starts shouting for no reason, but other than that, it's just boring. Nothing made me jump.
Yeah, I guess I can't fault the acting in it, I guess, for the film it is. Well, apart from one character, but I'll get into him later when we get into spoilers. But I just got out of this film last night, and it was just such a waste of time. I could have done anything in that time, but instead I went to see Sinister, and it was just utter crap. And it's just testament to what horror, as you said, what horror has become. And it's such a shame when you look back at what great horror films like The Shining or John Carpenter's The Thing, which do horror right, and you get a film like this, and it's just, there is nothing original about it, and I just can't wait until horror is reinvented sometime to move away from films like this.
But all it is now is just remakes, and
stuff like this,
and you know, stuff that thinks jump scares are scary. They're not scary. Writers should understand horror's about atmosphere, building a tense atmosphere, and then having a payoff, whether that be a jump scare. But you have to get the atmosphere right. Otherwise, you're just annoying people, and it's not scary at all. But I suppose we should get into spoiler territory.
Well, we can go over the brief plot if you do you want, or would you rather keep that for spoilers?
Keep it for spoilers.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's kind of, there's not really much going on in this, so
no.
You know, just whatever. So spoilers. This is spoiler time. So if you don't want us to spoil the film for you,
turn off now.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Okay, so we've got Ethan Hawke, who's a true crime writer, and he's looking for his next big break, and he finds this story of a family that was murdered in this house. So what does he do? Like any sane individual, he decides to move him and his entire family into this house where everyone was murdered. He doesn't tell his family at this point, and so that goes about as well as you can expect it to.
It's like what okay, like you said, what is he, why? So this house had a murdered family in it. Why does he have to then go and move his entire family there?
There is no reason he had to. I mean, if he wanted inspiration, he could just hang about in the area. He didn't have to move physically into the house in which the events happened.
He could have moved down the street. He
Exactly.
could have moved a different part of the town.
They described that the house has neighbours. Couldn't they have just moved there?
Yeah. It's just what is the point of Ethan Hawke moving there? You've also got one of the first sort of jump scares, which is so you could see it coming, where he has a son who suffers from night terrors, which is is played up as being an important thing, but it's just tossed aside quite early on. Where a jump scare is where he sees a box with his, and out of the box comes his kid, sort of like in the Exorcist 3, the sort of spider walk down the stairs.
Yeah.
He sort of comes out of the box like that and just screams at the camera, and at that point you're thinking, is this the best they can come up with? This, it's not. It's just there's nothing creepy about children at all in this film,
and that's
nothing.
Basically what the whole film revolves around in most of its scares, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's just like you see the kid come out of the box, and it's like, oh, brilliant. Is this it? Is this all they can give us? This isn't scary. This isn't frightening. It doesn't make you jump.
So from there, as he's struggling to write this book, he hears a jump scare from the attic. So of course he goes to investigate it, and he finds an old metal box which is filled with these old Super 8 film reels and a projector. So he sets it up and he starts watching them, and it's basically all families getting murdered, point of view style, in particularly nasty ways. For example, you got a family getting hung, which is how the film begins. You've got people strapped to a car and it being set on fire, people being drowned, and one involving a lawnmower.
Yeah, but this is like, I'm skipping ahead to the end, because the whole thing revolves around this twist that basically it was the children disappeared, and it turns out at the end that it's actually them who killed the families. So my question is, how the hell does this kids that are like 10, 11, 12 manage to strap their families to like deck chairs to push them in the water, like physically pull a rope that drowns them, set a car on fire? Like, how do they get the Super 8? Where did that come from? Did the evil alien or boogeyman like buy it for them? Where did the film? Can they edit film now? Can they edit Super 8 film? How did that get edited? How did the box get there in the first place?
Yeah, Bagul is obviously some kind of filmmaker in his spare time, aside from possessing and eating children. Because Ethan Hawke, when he starts finding... Well, he looks back through these films in like super slow-mo. He puts it on his Mac, which is obvious product placement. And he finds this strange figure in all of the shots somewhere. And he finds drawings which call him Mr. Boogie. So he takes these symbols that he finds and he contacts this professor who deals with symbols and old cultures. And then he comes back to it and he says it's basically dates back to ancient times with a demon called Bagul that possesses and eats children.
Which is a stupid name for a demon.
It's better than Mr. Boogie.
You should have just called him Jimmy Savile.
Oh, topical.
Yeah.
And Bagul doesn't even look menacing or scary at all. He just looks ridiculous. He looks like a reject from Slipknot or something. And this is meant to be a scary antagonist. But yeah, so does Ethan Hawke at this point go, you know what? Fuck this. Pack in the car. We're going back. Nope. He looks at all these murdered children and he goes to contact the police, but he doesn't, and he thinks, hang on, this would be a good idea for my book. I should stay here and carry on writing my book so I can become rich.
This is the trope. Dumb white people in horror films. Dumb as hell white people.
And dumb white policemen. There is this is the character I was referring to earlier. Good God, I don't know whether it was the script for him or the actor himself. After he hears this jump scare in the attic previously, which is like a friggin' 10-ton block slamming against the ceiling, the policeman goes to investigate it and he says, it could be squirrels.
Squirrels, yeah.
Squirrels have feet. You saw a snake up there. Snakes don't have feet.
No. Before that, though, the first time he goes into the attic, he kills a scorpion, not with his shoe, which a normal person would do. He drops a box on it, which breaks the attic, like smashes up some boards in the attic, and it's the stupidest. It's stupid to watch, but that has no relevance to the actual box or anything. It comes up in a few pictures of like the demon, but that's about it, and that's the only reference we get to why there's a scorpion or a snake for that matter up there.
Yeah, but this line from the policeman, it goes on for like about 5 lines. It's just them exchanging dialogue like, snakes don't have feet, scorpions have feet, but it's too small for a big man like that. Squirrels have feet, they could cause a noise like this. I'm just sitting there like, what the hell? Who wrote this?
I think it was supposed to be funny, but it just sort of missed the point completely.
This was the character who was completely out of place. I think he was played up for the comic relief, but everything he said just fell flat and just wasn't funny at all.
Yeah, that's kind of it's just and then you get like what okay, so what else happens in there? You got the creepy bit I found, which I thought I was commendable, where Ethan Hawke's character Allison is like tripping, having weird visions, and he like climbs up to the attic in what is a creepy bit. He sees all the dead children have been taken by Magul, sitting in front of the projector, as Magul walks towards the frame, like he's actually in the projector. He lives in the pictures themselves, and then he walks off the frame of the projector screen, and then the jump scare is his face like appears in front of the camera. It's like that's stupid. It's not scary, but the payoff was bad. But the build up was good. I think in that bit, the only bit I found actually scary.
Another thing that annoys me about modern horror films, and I kind of get this with the Paranormal Activity films, and this one, I think this was from the producer of Paranormal Activity. The whole film is based on routine. It just follows this bog standard pattern. So, for example, in this, you've got Ethan Hawke watches video, goes to sleep, wakes up at night, weird shit happens. Next morning, he watches another video, goes to bed, sees which, and it's that repeated through the entire film. With Paranormal Activity, morning, nothing happens, bedtime, a door opens, wake up, discuss that, and it's just the same pattern, and you're not getting anything creative. It's just Ethan Hawke pacing around his house at night, seeing weird demonic images of creepy zombified children.
Yeah, and there's a bit in it where he literally walks around the house and the children are like following him.
That bit was terrible.
Is like when there's the first child who comes up on screen, like comes out of the shadows and sticks her face right up to the camera.
Everyone in the cinema just laughed their asses off at that part.
It was supposed to be scary, but it's like it just come across as silly, which is this whole film actually.
Yeah, this. And what else did I like? I kind of liked the family aspect. I thought the actress who played the wife in it was pretty good.
I thought she came across as annoying and too stereotypically British.
But I thought this film would have worked better if there was no supernatural element at all, and it was trying to base it more on realism, that there's these killings happen in real life with children going missing, and he's trying to write his book, and therefore he has to also protect his children whilst also wanting to try and be a successful writer.
And maybe you could have this guy is using Magul as a source for his killings, or he's trying to, or maybe you could have had an actual killer using Magul in a way where people suspect it is actually a ghost.
Yeah, I thought that would have made it more a horror/thriller type of film.
Yeah,
and it could have genuinely created a sense of terror and an ominous presence that the killer could always be there. And now this film starts out okay with the tension, but it just gets to a stage where it's jump scare after jump scare after jump scare,
and there aren't really many jump scares in it either.
No, and even the ones that there are, you can kind of predict what's going to happen or where they're going to occur.
Yeah, so
they're not even successful in the way that they're used.
Yeah. And what else happens? Well, I've completely forgotten what happens, because it's that sort of film where you just don't care.
Ethan Hawke enlists the help of this dumb policeman to try and look through police records.
He finds out all the murders are linked. That if you lived in the house,
before that, he moves back. He sees. I think it's the vision of the children. And one night he just burns all the film, and he's like, right, we are going back home. Get the kids, pack the car. We're leaving now. So they drive away, go back to their original house, which is much more creepier than the house in which the killings happened.
Yeah. And then it turns out that all the previous families that have been killed from the 60s onwards have lived in the house Ethan Hawke moved into and then moved back. Which kind of begs which I wonder, how did the original kid who first went missing see Magul? How did that happen? I don't understand how they saw Magul, or how they actually.
Yeah, where did the chain reaction start of all of this?
Did she see pictures of Magul or what? Because there the professor says there aren't very many pictures around.
No, there's dates back to like the ancient times, like the one of the most ancient symbols.
So how did that kid see Magoo?
And another thing is that this police investigation's been ongoing for what, 50 years, 50 plus years, and like the investigation was basically scrapped. They can't find any more evidence. How did no one piece together, which is probably one of the first things of a police procedure in an investigation, how did they not know that each family had lived in the house previously and then been killed to decipher this pattern?
Yeah.
It's a pretty simplistic pattern.
It takes Ethan Hawke to realise that it is the families that these families lived in the policeman finds it, but why the police didn't look at that at first is beyond me. But then you get to the crux of the ending. Jesus, the ending is just awful.
I found it predictable, to be honest.
You could have guessed that the kids did it, and do you know what happens? Ethan Hawke's the next the next victim,
because he moved into the house and then moved back to his original house. So therefore, he is another part of the chain reaction. So at the end, his daughter walks in, possessed, and she straps all the family down to the floor of the living room, and she takes an axe to them all, which you don't see. Which I actually think was one of the strengths of this film, considering what we're saying about it. It wasn't like a typical gore fest. It did leave a lot of the gore to the imagination.
But how did she drag all her family into like the living room?
Yeah, well,
how could she lift an axe that big?
I was going to say, they use a sedative to knock the people out, but that doesn't explain how the logistics of moving the bodies into place.
Where did she get the sedative from?
Never explained. And another thing I didn't get was, when did Bagul actually possess her or claim her soul? Because at the end, after she kills the family, Bagul walks up, picks up Ethan Hawke's daughter, and kind of walks into the netherworld with her. So was that symbolising that he'd possessed her after she'd killed the family in which she'd done this horrific act, or was she possessed before to carry out the act?
No,
never explained.
No idea. Like all the stuff it raises, like you just think, how could this happen? How does that happen? What are the logistics of that? Like the first killing, it was the first killing you see was of the girl was of the family getting hanged. Basically, this girl rigged up a elaborate trap to like where she had to physically cut a tree branch that was like the thickness of your like head. She had to cut a tree branch, which then fell down, which in turn had a rope attached to it. So when it fell, it lifted the family up. How did she come up with that? How did she put that into action? Where did she find the rope? Where did she find the saw to cut it? She must have been there for hours trying to cut the branch. You know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Unless it's like that Bagul, once he's possessed them, they can harness, if he has like superhuman strength or something, being a demon, maybe they kind of take on his strength. But if that's the case, this was never explained.
How does Magoo possess them anyway? How does he do that?
None of these questions are ever explained. Oh, and of course, at the very, very end of the film, we get a jump scare.
Yeah.
You know, it couldn't just end where it does. Instead, we get Bagul's face just lunges on screen for a final jump scare, then we hit credits.
For a cheap scare. That's all this film was. Cheap scares, not very scary, and it's just awful. I came out and needed a stiff drink because I hated it that much.
I didn't like. I hated it. I didn't like it, but I think you hated it more than me. I mean, I didn't like it, but I just found it forgettable. I was just like, that was a bad film, never going to watch it again, move on. But you were genuinely raging after this film.
We had to record this the day after Because I don't think I would have kept a level head in this review had we done it the previous the day we saw it, because I was come out of there just effing and blinding and just going on and on about how much I hated this.
So yeah, so I think we've kind of given our thoughts. We've broke down the film as much as we can.
With what plot there is.
Yeah, plot terrible, execution terrible, music tension non-existent.
Yeah.
Acting is okay, but when you've got material like this, it's not saying much.
No. It's just
So this Halloween, we implore you not to watch Sinister.
No.
And we urge you to watch good horror.
Don't get drawn into the reviews about how good it is, how disturbing it is. It's utter crap.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're talking about, and that it's not very good.
No, and I think that's all we can say.
Yep.
So this Halloween, we hope you watch something a lot better than what we had to watch last night.
Yes. And stay tuned for more reviews, or go to our stay tuned for more reviews on this channel. So with that being said, thanks very much for listening to this review, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.